my darling viewers, it's Jen here at Check Her Joy, and this time I'm reviewing Archenemies by Marissa Meyer. This is book 2 in the Renegades series. Book 1 is called Renegades. These follow superpowered individuals called prodigies, and they really break up into two fractions. The Renegades, which are the heroes, they're in charge. They have restored order after the villains have been in charge in the past and society completely fell apart. So the villains are the Anarchists, and they want just everybody to have their own choice and rules and opinions and just do whatever they want. Except not everybody is good, and people take advantage. So while the Anarchists were in charge, there was a lot of looting and robbing, and society fell apart. The economy just completely broke down. They lost power. There weren't really jobs. Just everything was a mess. There was rampant homelessness. So when the Renegades took over, they are rebuilding a city and trying to make it better and be leaders. But at the same time, we have this group of superheroes in charge who are really good at fighting and being police. And they're the ones making laws and making decisions, and it's not perfect either. So the series follows two teenagers, Nov'a and Adrian. Nov'a was raised by the Anarchists, and Adrian was raised by the Renegades, and the whole premise of the series is that the two of them end up working together. Nov'a, the villain, goes undercover, joins his heroes. They don't know that she's actually a villain, so she's doing double agent work. And Adrian has this other alter ego called Sentinel, where he is trying to help, but he does it in such a way that he isn't always following the rules, and so he's also kind of an enemy of the Renegades. Just because he's not following the rules and they don't know who he is. So we have two individuals both hiding, and they start working together and they become friends and they start kind of falling for each other. So if you haven't read Renegades, go read book 1 first. This is not a series that you can just jump into book 2 and just go with it. There's so much world building, and you really need to read Renegades first. You need to. So my review for book 1, I will post the link to that in the description below. It's awesome. I love this series. It is tons of fun. Trust me, do that. So book 2, as soon as it starts, we're immediately just jumping into the story. We have Nov'a and Adrian and the rest of the group on a stakeout, watching this hospital where a prodigy known as Hawthorne is stealing drugs that she wants to turn into illegal drugs, recreational, get you completely high drugs. I think it's meth, but I don't quite remember it. It doesn't honestly matter. Basically, she stole medicinal drugs so she can turn them into recreational drugs. And so we have a lot more criminals coming out of the woodwork. They seem to be a lot more public. And also there's just chaos caused by the Anarchists in the last book. From the detonator blowing up the amusement park to what went down at the library. People are aware that the Anarchists and the villains aren't quite as complacent and underground as everybody thought. They're still active, and they're definitely in high alert. There's definitely risk and danger in this book, and tensions are growing and building in this. We jump back in. We've got the group. We've got Oscar and Ruby and their do they like each other, don't they like each other thing, where it's pretty obvious they like each other. They just don't admit it to each other. Get Dana and her butterflies, who is just so observant. So we also see Max again, the bandit, Adrian's half-brother, the one who can steal other people's powers, and that becomes a big part of this book, as the Renegades have actually developed Agent N, the serum that can steal a prodigy's powers and make them normal. And really, they want to use it to neutralize the villains and anybody who doesn't want to follow the Renegade code. And Nov'a has some serious issues with that, and the amount of power that it would give the Renegades and how easily it could be abused. Especially when they start talking about just giving it to all the patrol units to just have with them, just in case things get out of control. And so there's no oversight in this process. Like, if you're in a combat situation, you just strip somebody of their powers with no due process. And Nova''s totally not okay with this. And she starts getting Adrian also to think about this and is this okay? And really starts putting the question up. She's asking the Renegades, like, are you sure? What are we going to do? Particularly, like, questions about putting Renegades like Frostbite, Aftershock, Gargoyle, and Stingray, like that group, the ones who are a little bit corrupt, the ones who are already pushing the limit, kind of crossing the line, abusing powers a little bit. If you give them something like Agent N, they really could just zap somebody's powers. And there's a lot of like moral, ethical questions in this book about taking away somebody's powers. Like, on the other hand, you're not killing them. They still get to live. But when you have a power that is so ingrained in part of your personality and who you are and your identity and what you can do, that can be devastating. There's also a danger just inherent in this. If you're carrying it around, what if you accidentally end up using it on yourself or one of your teammates? What if you strip the powers of one of the good guys? So a lot of questions that still need to be answered about this. It's not straight, obvious stuff in this book. And we definitely see Nov'a playing more of the double agent in this book. We see her running around Renegade headquarters, sneaking around, trying to ask questions. She's trying to figure out like how to get her hands on Agent N so she can take it back to Leroy, the cyanide, the one who works with all the poisons, to see if he can replicate it or if they can come up with a dispersal unit that can become like used against the Renegades. Because the formula that the Renegades have has to be either ingested or injected. So you have to drink it or have it shot into your bloodstream so that it poses less of a risk of infecting like bystanders or stripping bystanders of their powers. But for the Anarchists to really use it effectively, they need to be able to use it from like a distance. So trying to figure out how to really use it against the Renegades. And definitely see more of the Anarchists. And since the end of the last book, and we found out Ace Anarchy was actually alive the whole time, we get to see more of Ace. Like, how was he actually surviving in the catacombs underneath the cathedral? We see, Phobia taking care of him. We find out that Honey's been coming to visit. She's been taking care of him. And we see a dynamic around the Anarchists that's a little more complicated in this book. That they are really more like a family. Not just that we're all taking care of Nov'a, but also like this group pulling together to help take care of Ace. And we definitely get to see Ace and Nova''s relationship and how it's changed since, she's a 6-year-old. Since when she was 6, when she got taken in and joined them, to what it looks like now that she's a teenager. Another huge part of this book is Nov'a and Adrian's relationship. They definitely have feelings for each other. They're definitely getting stronger. And we get to play with miscommunications a bit in this book also. At the end of Renegades, there's a scene in the amusement park where Adrian goes to kiss Nov'a and she freaks out. So now Adrian's like, well, maybe she doesn't actually like me. Maybe it's just me who likes her. He's trying to give her space. Nov'a receives instructions specifically to get close to Adrian so she can exploit him, which she has mixed feelings about to begin with, about whether or not she should exploit somebody that she really cares about and how doing this could really end up hurting both of them. Not just hurting Adrian, but she could end up hurting herself too if she has to betray him. So, Nova''s got a lot going on here. And then we also see her trying to flirt with Adrian also. And then every time she flirts, Adrian's like, does she like me? Doesn't she like me? She made it pretty obvious she didn't want to kiss me before. Has her feelings changed? Am I like reading too much into this? So definitely a lot of playing with their relationship and that romance, which was fun and interesting. I like slow building relationships. Like, I don't want them to just jump into it. Like, I love playing with this. There's also scenes where, like, Honey is teaching Nov'a how to flirt that are just absolutely adorable and funny. It's great. Another huge part of this book is Ace's helmet. We found out in the last book that Ace's helmet didn't get destroyed. It's still in Renegade headquarters, and so Nov'a has a whole storyline about how she's trying to track down the helmet, gain people's trust. When she does find the helmet, she's got to figure out how to sneak it out of the building and how to really make it accessible so she can use it again, because they really did secure it so that it looks like she might not be able to get it. But she just starts thinking, using her imaginative and creative powers to try to figure her way into it and get it out of there. We also find out more about Adrian's family, about his half-brother, Max, and about his two dads who are on the council who are ruling everything, but also they're his dads. And we get to see this private family life side of them also, which I loved. So I love the personal stuff in this. There are tons of superpowers and fighting and plots and intrigue, and there's a whole lot of political and moral questions. You guys can ignore my cat. He's just crying because he wants food. Ignore the cat crying. Yeah, I can. So there are tons of moral, ethical, political questions in here. Get into a bit of philosophy. This is not philosophy. So this book series has lots of political, moral, ethical questions about who should be in charge and who should be ruling a society, and how much power is too much power, and how much free will should you give the populace, especially when they do have so much. They have superpowers. Too much can be dangerous. Not everybody's gonna behave and do what they should. So I think that's all I can really tell you guys about this book without really, really, really getting into the huge, massive, ruin the book for you spoilers. So I super loved this book. I liked it a little bit more than Renegades. I gave Renegades a 4 stars on Goodreads. This one's, I gave it the 5 stars, but it's really more like a 4.5. I like this book a little bit more. There was no awkward world building because we're already in the world. We know who these characters are. And also the fact that there's no blowing up the library in this book, which was a huge part of why I didn't like Renegades. So much of that book was centered around the blowing up the library. So there's the spoiler-free section of my review for Archenemies. Yes, I do recommend it. You guys should totally be reading the series. Marissa Meyer is an amazing writer. She's definitely one of my favorites. And this is definitely a book that proves how good she is at writing. So if you haven't read this book yet, peace out. I love you and keep reading. If you have read, let's talk about spoilers in Archenemies. So spoilers. So, spoilery stuff. First off, Nov'a gets a job working in the vaults with the ancient artifacts, which is where Ace Anarchy's helmet is stored. They trust her to be in charge of this. She is one of 3 prodigies that have, complete and total access to this department and all the crazy, magical, super-powered stuff they've accumulated. Stuff like people's costumes, weapons that prodigies have made, really ancient artifacts from way, way, way before the Age of Anarchy that have powers and maybe can do stuff they haven't even started exploring yet. So getting into these vaults and really seeing what is in there was so awesome. I like the 2 main people who are in charge of this and meeting the new prodigies. So we have the person who's completely in charge. I think it's Snapshot, who can tell if an artifact has any extra powers, which is really cool. And then we have Callum, who at first just looks like a non-prodigy who is just totally geeking out about prodigy history. But then we do find out that he is a prodigy and that he can make people see his point of view, kind of. So he has this very distinct view of what prodigies can do and what they should do, and it's very optimistic and very awesome. And honestly, if everybody thought like Callum, the world probably would be better, and how we should be using powers for good and helping each other. And it's very inspiring. But also, he uses it on Nov'a, and she's like, I feel abused. I feel like you're manipulating me, and I don't like it. So it's not a perfect power. So Callum's very interesting. He's this total nerd and this total geek, and I loved seeing him. And I definitely want to see more of him in the next book. So while she's in the vault, she not only finds Ace Anarchy's helmet, but she and Adrian run across this amulet. that was made in like the Middle Ages that was supposed to like fend off the plague. And Adrian reads the descriptions that it can ward off disease and other things, and he's like, I wonder if it could stop like Max's power, if it could protect from another prodigy that would be trying to steal your powers. And so he completely goes into Max's thing to test this out with no real protection, no real backup plan other than Max be ready to call for help if we need it. And miraculously it works. Like, it's such a completely dangerous thing to do. But it does work, and it completely changes everything for Max. He can't touch his brother. It's completely like, it had me crying the first time that Adrian can hug Max. Or, I mean, Hugh, Captain Chromium could always touch and hang out with Max, but that's been the only contact he has. And really, there's also a scene where they let Simon, the other dad, wear it for the first time. And it's the first time that he and Max get to touch. And, like, Max just completely goes in for a hug. And I lost it. Like, completely lost it. So it's such a huge change for Max's life and what he can do. He still can't go out into the world and be amongst other humans, but to have the people he is closest to, like, actually be able to come hang out with him in close proximity to actually, like, touch him is such a huge deal. So I really love that. And then the amulet becomes this big part of Nova''s plan to try to use Agent N against the Renegades. She wants to figure out how to make it like a gas so that anybody around her would get exposed to it, but also not take away her own powers. So she tries to get the amulet so that she can use it for her own good, or her own plan. Which is a little bit selfish, and I don't know, this is when I start like not trusting Nov'a that much in this book. Nova''s so interesting in this book, and she changes so much, but also doesn't, and it'll be really interesting to see where book 3 goes and how Nov'a and Adrian both change. Nova''s spending more time at Renegades headquarters. She's getting to know individual Renegades better, so not just Adrian, but also the rest of the group. She's starting to actually become friends with Oscar and Ruby and kind of Dana. Like, they're actually her friends. She likes them. She trusts them. And the thought of having to, like, hurt them, she's maybe not so okay with it. And she definitely feels this, she feels an attachment to Max, too, as this 10-year-old boy. And she feels bad for him and that he's stuck and isolated from everybody else. And it's actual, like, deep feelings that she has for them. And even there's a scene where she goes to the Dread Warden's house and Captain Chromium. She's in the mayor's mansion. And, like, just having dinner with them, and it feels normal and comfortable. Well, it kind of starts to feel comfortable for, like, a second. So we see Nov'a kind of, they're not necessarily straight up the enemy. Like, they have good points, too. But she also knows that her loyalties have to stay to the Anarchists and to her family and to Ace. But we see this kind of warring happening in Nov'a, and it's getting, like, more tumultuous. We also see Adrian as the Sentinel kind of having to deal with who he is and what he's doing and how he's hiding from people and the lies he's telling. And there is a scene very early on in this book where the Sentinel appears to die. And Adrian has to decide whether or not to let the Sentinel just be dead, because everybody thinks he is, or if he should don the thing again. He's really dealing with that. Like, should I just be Adrian? Should I let the Sentinel go? He's causing more problems than he's solving. He's got his friends and family out looking for him as an enemy. And really just the almost getting caught constantly. He doesn't like the thought of lying to his dads. And then there's also Agent N out there, and what if one of the Renegades use Agent N against the Sentinel and Adrian just loses his powers? Like, not only will he be found out, but also he won't be able to do anything that is such a huge part of who he is, the sketching and the drawing. Also, on Adrian's powers, Adrian draws this mural in his art studio that is just, Nov'a tells him this dream she had as a kid about about the statue she found in these ruins, and how there was like the star in the statue. And Adrian draws the dream as he imagined it, and Nov'a, he shows it to Nov'a, and he brings it to life. And they're literally in this forest, and then the statue becomes 3-dimensional. And then, even though he didn't draw it, the star was in the statue. And so that was just so cool. Such an awesome scene. We have Nov'a really let down her guard, really become comfortable with Adrian, and almost like kind of. There's a second where I feel like she could have just completely given up on the anarchist thing and just wanted to be with Adrian, which was really sweet. And it's adorable to see like their date. So Adrian just shows up at his house, completely by surprise. They're like hanging out. It's just two of them together. And she's very much trying to get his guard down and really get him, well, to let her touch him, really, so that she can put him to sleep and search his house for this necklace, the amulet that protects against Max's power. But it's really sweet to see like the two of them connect, and they really do. And there's a moment where Adrian puts on, like, where Adrian draws headphones for Nov'a, and she puts them on, and it drowns out the sound of the gunshots, because she told Adrian about how her family died, which was also really another really sweet moment. So many really sweet moments that I really loved. And she sleeps for the first time. And then she wakes up and she's been asleep for 24 hours in their house, in the mayor's mansion. And I have so many questions about Adrian's relationship with his dads, that he's allowed to just have a girl in his house and they're fine with it. I mean, is it because they know Nov'a? Like, I don't. He's a teenage boy. He's allowed just to have a girl sleep in his room. It's totally fine. It's not even like she fell asleep and like, oh, we're gonna let her sleep, but like they eat dinner together and then she immediately is like allowed back into his room, just the two of them like, alone together again. I'm like, really? Your dad's let him have so much leeway. That was probably my favorite part of the book, is like just the normalcy of this moment that she and Adrian have without everything else happening. But at the same time, Nova''s on high alert. Adrian doesn't know it. Adrian thinks it's just like she likes him and they want to hang out. And then she wants to hang out with him, but like actually she's there spying to find this necklace. And how like Nova''s on the defensive, like, oh my gosh, it's Captain Chromium and Simon, and like, man, that whole scene was awesome. I also I love Simon. He's definitely my favorite of Adrian's two dads. Like, Simon is so awesome. There's a moment where she's sneaking around the house and she completely catches Simon off guard, and he goes invisible for a second just out of shock. Like, it's the defense mechanism. And then he's like, oh, it's just Nov'a. She's like, oh, I was looking for food. He's like, oh, here's some food. It's really, oh my god, it's such a fun scene. There are definitely moments with Ace and really seeing the Anarchists just hanging out in the cathedral with him and their group and really discussing philosophy and what they're going to do. So it was interesting to see them. This part that was really being hidden from us in book one. We get to see some of the missing dynamics. We still don't know a whole lot about phobia, and I want to learn so much. Like, I have so many questions about phobia. And then the finale of this book, these end scenes, there is a gala, and there's the dressing up, and the date that Adrian's so excited about, and Nova's a little nervous about, because she's got this plan to use Agent N on the Renegades. But she's got to create a cover first, so she goes to the party, is very much seen. She and Adrian have this adorable moment. We also see Oscar asking her for advice with Ruby, and like, she honestly does care about their relationship. The two of them are adorable together and clearly like each other, which was sweet. So, we've got the gala, which is tons of fun, and then we have Nov'a escaping, and we see her plan to break into Renegade headquarters, steal Ace's helmet, and try to break it out of this chromium box. She thinks she maybe knows a way to get it out of the box, but even if not, she's going to take the helmet box and all, like, get out of there. So she breaks into headquarters, and there's really big showdown with Janessa Clark, Frostbite's group of prodigies, and it's really personal because she's in the disguise of Nightmare, but it's Janessa, so kind of a jerk. And this huge fight that ensues, and it ends up putting Max in danger. and Max really comes out. His life is on the line, but we also see Agent N being used against the Renegades, but it's also the Renegades that I don't care about, so it's fine that Gargoyle loses his power. It's fine that Aftershock I think he loses his power too. Like, that's totally what I want. I don't like these guys. They should not have power. They just completely abuse it. I really hate Janessa Clark and her group. And then we see Max starting to steal Janessa's power and the amulet, working for Nov'a to protect her. But then Max gets hurt and injured, and like, we see Nov'a, even though she's supposed to be Nightmare, rushing to save him because that's her friend. She honestly literally cares about Max. Like, she deeply cares about Max, and not just because he's important to the mission or important to Adrian, but because she cares for Max, which is really sweet. So we see Max's life in danger. That kind of puts everything up in a bit of a twist, and we end the story not even like he's alive for now, but is he going to be okay? Please, oh, please let Max be okay. There's also another fight happening. Dana was in swarm formation and spying on the Anarchists, and Nov'a saw her and caught her. And if Dana gets released, she can reform and tell the Renegades that Nov'a is actually one of the Anarchists. So she's being held prisoner right now, but only part of her is. So the other part of the swarm went and got Adrian to come to the cathedral. He goes down there. He runs into Phobia. Oscar and Ruby end up following. There's a huge thing with Adrian turning into the Sentinel and Oscar and Ruby, and by virtue of like the swarm, Dana also finding out that he's the Sentinel. But the big thing is that they go into the cathedral and they do find Ace, and the 3.5 of them fighting Ace and taking him down, but he's so injured and so damaged. And they managed to take out Phobia already, so it's just him by himself that they actually do subdue. They subdue Ace Anarchy, which is pretty awesome. Ace gets captured, which I was like, this is so gonna change everything. Between Ace getting captured, Max being in danger, the fact that Max has all the clues that he could figure out that Nov'a is Nightmare. Also, if Dana gets put back together, she can also reveal that Nov'a is Nightmare. And really, while Nov'a was going through the vaults, there are so many clues that if anybody's actually paying attention, they can put it together. Nov'a pretty much assumes that Nightmare, like, her cover is blown. They're going to figure out that she's Nightmare and she's an anarchist. But then the end is Adrian showing up at her door completely distraught that his little brother's in danger and can't do anything to help, and feeling completely helpless. And he goes to Nov'a, who he thinks is his girlfriend that he can trust, and is like, and just wants to be held. And he clearly doesn't know yet. He doesn't know that she's Nightmare. Nov'a doesn't know that he's the Sentinel. So that's our setup for book 3. I so need to know what happens in the next book. Like, I need this to be the end of the series also, because like this is originally supposed to be a duology. I don't know if I can take another ending like this, where we have more questions than answers at the end. Please let book 3 wrap everything up nice and prettily. There's so many questions, so many things in my head where I'm like, how is this all going to work out? Can it all work out? Yeah. There's also the librarian's granddaughter vanished in book 1, and it clearly seems like she has it out for Nov'a, but like she doesn't make a reappearance in Archenemies, so I'm wondering if and when she's going to show up in book 3 and what role is she going to play. So book 3 is definitely playing off for like this big, huge battle, and really I hope that they tear the Renegades down and create something new, something different, a third option that is a little bit more with some oversight. It's not the Renegades just doing whatever they want, that normal not prodigies get to have a say in how things are run. Because, I mean, neither group is completely right in this story. Neither the Anarchists or the Renegades should really be in charge. But if I had to pick, the Renegades are a little bit better than the Anarchists. Yeah. I really want to see where book 3 goes. I really want to see if Nova''s cover really is blown, because it's not for sure yet. And for her cover not to be blown, I feel like Dana's gonna have to not be released, which would be bad. So that's probably getting blown. But if she could like sneak into Renegade headquarters again, can she free Ace? Can she do anything for him? Also, in the book, they Winston gets his powers taken away as a demonstration in front of all the Renegades of what this thing can do. So that was really heartbreaking to see Winston lose his powers and really grapple with that. But at the same time, he's still loyal. He hasn't given away Nova''s secret that she's Nightmare. Like, he tells Adrian that Nightmare's still alive, but he doesn't actually reveal that Nova''s Nightmare. So the Winston thing is just like heartbreaking, but also he's no longer really a prodigy anymore. Is he really going to play a part in book 3? Yeah. Also, are they just going to use Agent N on everybody? Is nobody going to get a wish that there are no prodigies? And everybody's just normal. This whole series really ramped up, and there was so much stuff that could happen in the end, and I am so looking forward to that. And now I have a really long wait, which is the downside of like rushing out to read book 2. Was now I gotta wait till the book 3 is released, and have all these questions in my head about what's gonna happen and what I think should happen. I really want Adrian and Nov'a to like get together and be a functioning couple without any secrets. That would be awesome. That's my goal. Also to create this third way. So there's my complete review for Archenemies by Marissa Meyer. Let me know in the comments below what you thought of this book. If it's going to be spoilery though, put a spoiler warning on it, please, for people who haven't read the book yet. But I definitely want to talk about it, obviously. I'm really loving the series. So, yeah. So, peace out. I love you guys, and keep reading. Bye!